What's going on, y'all? I'm out here in the shop working on these Foxbodies, and I'm just going to say it again, guys, and I'm probably going to start saying it every video. I appreciate anybody that watches my videos or checks out my channel. If you would, just share it with a friend. Tell them you found some idiot on YouTube that works on Foxbodies, and he usually takes the long way about getting it done, but he usually gets them fixed, and I would appreciate that. Now, for the second part of the fuel system. This is where I'm going to be installing the fuel system. And at the end of the last video, I mentioned that the car had developed a fuel leak. And I will be perfectly honest with y'all, I got so irritated that I didn't even record the leak when I found it. I came back and recorded it later. So you'll get to see how I fixed the leak. And then I'm gonna go out and do some driving because once again, I have to test the car, guys. I mean, I gotta make sure that the air fuel is right. I gotta make sure that the fuel pressure is building because that's the whole reason that the car is getting a fuel system in the first place. So once again, I've ran on too long, I've yapped too long, but guys, appreciate you hanging in there with me. So let me shut up and let's get into this fuel system. Right now, while the tank is out, is a good time to go ahead and mount your fuel filter. And this one is actually mounted, and I'll show you that here in just a second. But the other thing I wanted to mention is that now is also the time that you need to plan out where your fuel lines are gonna go. And you always wanna have your exhaust in place to do that. And I've just got this held together with a pair of vice grips right now because once I plot out where the fuel lines are gonna go, it's gonna have to drop back down so I can get access to everything. When I'm looking for a spot to mount the filter, I always like to have the fittings on it. That way I can see where my clearance is on both sides. And the really important side is this side because this is the tailpipe right here. So you're not gonna run a straight fitting out because it's gonna go right into the exhaust. A 45 wasn't enough of a bend, but this 90 will let me run this hose down almost exactly where the factory lines run. So that's why I put a 90 on there. Now, these two holes are where the factory fuel filter mount goes. And you can see that if I tried to mount this over here, I was gonna be all over the exhaust. So I moved it down some to get the clearance that I needed right here. And I've got about 1.5 to 2 inches right here now. But on the other end, it caused a little bit of an issue with my 180. And you can see I had to work on the spare tire well a little bit with a hammer there. But that's just kind of how it goes sometimes with these aftermarket parts, guys. You just got to make them fit. You can see this is where the factory lines originally went. And I'm going to kind of follow that. If I had a 90 right here, I would be able to go straight to where I'm wanting to go right here. But I don't have one. I'm not waiting 3 or 4 days. So I'm going to have to put a little S bend in it, just like the factory. So I'm going to come around this way and put a bend in it and then come back around with another bend. Now I know it's getting harder and harder to see, but this is where my line is going to come down. So basically I'm going to be following the brake line. That's the brake line right there. And this right here is where the factory lines ran. And I'm basically just gonna follow the factory lines all the way up to the front. I ended up going with 45s off the fuel hat on both the 6 and 8 AN. And the reason I did that is because the way they hug the tank and the way they go down. Because what that's gonna do, it's gonna let me run them right down the side of the tank and through this channel and up to the filter and then up to the front of the car. The other thing I wanted to show you, the way I mount the hose. I don't know the technical name for these clamps, I'm not even gonna lie. They're usually used for metal pipe or conduit, stuff like that. But you can just get these at your local hardware store. And I use the 2-hole mounts where I have room, just because I feel like 2 mounts will hold better than 1. And then I use the singles where I'm limited for space. And you just get the corresponding size to your hose. So these 2 are 1/2 inch and these are 3/8. And then the way I mount them is I just use self-tappers. I'm gonna show y'all why I like push lock hose so much and how easy it is to work with. So I have the 2 fittings off the fuel hat because I like to start at the back. I don't know why, that's just what I always do. I start at the back and work my way towards the front. But all you really need to get these fittings in this hose is, this is a heat gun, but I have used a blow dryer in the past and just some type of penetrating oil. So the heat gun is going to make the hose really soft. So
it will expand as you're pushing the fitting in. And of course, the penetrating oil will just make everything slick where it'll slide in real easy. So let's see how this works. You're not gonna burn it to the ground or anything. You're not gonna put it right up against it. You're gonna heat it for, I don't know, 20 seconds or so. And you just wanna make sure you get an inch or two down, you know, because that's how far the fitting is gonna go in there. So that should be good right there. Oh yeah, it's nice and soft. A little bit of penetrating oil in there. And then here comes your fitting, and boom. That's how easy it is. And when this cools back down, you're not gonna be able to pull that out. I have ran these multiple years on multiple cars. I've never had a fitting come apart. And if you want to, you can put hose clamps around that. I don't, but you can if you want to. I'm in the home stretch now. So here are my hoses coming up. And then I've got my fittings right here. I always put a little Vaseline on the O-rings. That'll help you get them in a lot easier. And then I'm just gonna put my fittings in the fuel rail, cut my hose to length, put a fitting on it, connect them, and wrap this up. I always give the fittings a few good tugs just to make sure that they're on good. And these seem to be. Fuel system is installed. We'll take one last look at it, and then the only thing left to do is check for clearance at the front wheel, crank it, make sure I don't have any leaks, and then take it out for a test drive. So I'm gonna try to do the best I can. You can see this is where the hat is between the tank and the frame, and the lines come down, sit in that little channel, and they ride around to the front up to the fuel filter. It is really hard to get clear images under the car, but this is the fuel line where it's coming around from the fuel hat. I've got good clearance on my exhaust, and I use a lot of zip ties as well as clamps, because sometimes you just can't get a clamp where you need it, so you just use a zip tie. The other thing, you might see this split hose right here and in various places. And the reason I do that is because there is a possibility that there might be some rubbing where those splice hoses are, and I just like that extra layer of protection. Now I'm headed forward towards the front of the car, and you can see I didn't have to put as bad as a bend in it as I thought I was going to have to do. And then it just runs down and kind of follows the factory lines. It's gonna get real hard to see the lines going down through here, but I wanted to video this with everything in place. That way I know I've got clearance everywhere. And you're not gonna have the red wire. That goes to his aftermarket fuel level gauge and his meter match in the tank. But it basically runs right where the factory lines went. And then this is probably the least amount of clearance I've had. And you can see I can still get my hand in there. Then it runs between the floor pan and the subframe connector. And then it just follows it down, goes under the convertible brace there, and then up just like the factory lines were, and around, and back down, just using plenty of clamps to make sure that those hoses aren't going anywhere. Then it goes up to the fuel rails. I know my hair is looking something crazy, y'all, but I've been working hard on this fuel system today. As you can see, it's up running. I got good fuel pressure at idle. I've got no leaks. I had clearance at the tire. Everything seems to be in good working order. So now we're gonna take this car down the road and see if it has fuel pressure under boost. While I was out testing the car, I noticed that the fuel gauge was getting pretty low. So I went ahead and filled it up completely. And when I got back is when I found the fuel leak, and I was so irritated that I didn't even record any of that originally. So the next part of the video is actually me explaining the fuel leak and fixing it. I found the leak, and it's not coming from the body of the tank. It's actually coming from where the top of the tank and the bottom of the tank come together at that seam right there. And you can see the drip right there, and that's exactly where it's coming from, right where my finger is, right in the corner of the tank there. And I've got a product that I'm gonna try to seal it with because I can't make it any worse. So all I can do is either fix it, and if it don't fix it, I'll have to replace it. But instead of going with JB Weld's gas tank repair, I'm gonna try this water weld because it will set under water, and hopefully it'll set under gas because that leak is not stopping. Hopefully I can drain some of the fuel out and make it stop. Right now it's got a full tank, but this is resistant to gas as well, and it sets up fairly quickly, 25 minutes, and it cures in an hour. So I thought I'd come up with a really great idea to drain about 10 gallons of fuel out of this car. I was gonna hook up the laptop and connect the Holly and turn the fuel pump prime on for about 30 seconds at a time until I filled up 2 5-gallon jugs. But as luck would have it, the cord that connects my laptop to the Terminator X
has crapped the bed. So now I'm gonna have to key off, key on about 8 million times to get some fuel out of this. And all I did was I disconnected the feed line from where it goes to the rail, and I connected it with another piece of hose and a fitting over to my gas can. It was a great idea. I guess it still is. It's just gonna take 14 hours now instead of 5 minutes, but that's okay. So I was a little irritated by having to key off, key on, key off, key on, key off. But this 8AN line and 450 Walboro, they move a ton of fuel. I have drained 7 gallons of fuel with about 50 key off, key ons. Maybe not even that many. I quit counting. But I got it done in about 5 minutes when I thought it was gonna take an hour. I'm glad I went ahead and drained some of that gas. I don't have a drip now, even though this is supposed to be water welled. So the only instructions that it really has, other than kneading the putty to a uniform color and then applying it, is to sand the area that you are going to try to get it to adhere to. So I'm gonna sand part of this, even though I'm almost positive it's the lip. I'm gonna go ahead and sand around the edges. That way it'll have a better chance of holding. Here's my final result for tonight, and we'll find out tomorrow if this thing is still leaking. But I was able to pull the exhaust pipe back just enough to get my finger in there to where I could really cram the water weld in between the 2 seams where the tank comes together and where it was leaking. And you see I went about 1 inch down the side, and I also went about 1 inch inward, and I put just about this much on the bottom side and around that corner. So we're gonna let it cure for 24 hours. We're gonna put some gas in it and see if it leaks. It's been about 36 hours since I did the initial repair, but I came out last night, which was 24 hours after I did the repair, and I put gas in the tank. And I just wanted it to sit overnight just to see if it was gonna leak. And I put a clean drain pan under where the leak was, and I am happy to say that that pan is bone dry. The other thing I did was I just kind of ran my finger around the seam just to make sure that it's not seeping, and it's not. So as of right now, the leak is fixed. Now the real determination is going to be after I drive this car, and I'm about to put everything back together and go drive it. The last thing I'm going to do, and it's just my OCD, no one will ever know it or see it, but where this JB weld is white, I'm just going to spray paint it black. Sorry about all the camera shake there on the wide open throttle pull when I was data-logging the car, but things were starting to get a little sideways there. But fortunately, I made it back okay, and you can see I've already got the wheel pulled off the car. So let's check out this fuel tank repair. Everything is nice and dry. There's no drips on the ground. When I run my finger across the seam where the leak is, it's nice and dry. So I'm gonna call that a win for right now. I'm gonna go ahead and wrap this one up, y'all. And as you can see, the gray convertible is gone for I think about the 5th time. And you never know with that car. It might be back later tonight. But right now, I'm gonna take it as a win because when it left here, it was doing everything that it should. Fuel pressure was rising under boost, and I had a very nice air-fuel ratio under boost. The fuel system install wasn't too bad, and I'm telling you guys, that's something you can do at home. You can do this stuff, guys. The other thing, I was really stoked that I was able to get the fuel tank fixed without having to pull it out and replace it. Next episode, if you look back here in the corner, I've got an engine block, a crank, and some pistons and rods. We're gonna be building the 408. We're gonna do it step by step from the ground up so you guys can see that everything goes into it, and I'll get into all the details of the engine in the next episode. But as always, guys, I'm pretty busy, so I'm out.